Live to Gatwick and Derek Johnson. And Derek, the big question, is the runway still due to open in the next half hour or not?
Well, it's a fluid situation. Technically, yes, but looking at the information boards behind us, there's still lots of cancelled and delayed written up. French police on a beach near Calais spotted a bunch of suspected migrants walking into the water towards a boat. Some of those migrants were even taking selfies of each other. So, yes, it is happening, sadly. It's a reckless and a ruthless trade. It exploits people. Some of these migrants get beaten up and even abandoned, sometimes forced to pay off a perceived debt when they get into the country illegally. Most importantly and most worryingly, their lives are being put in danger.
Derek, tell us a little bit more, if you will, about the legacy of the suffragettes.
Well, the thing about the vote is it's often viewed, understandably, purely in terms of equality, because that's one of the bedrocks of the society in which we live. But back then, really, it was much more about freedom, freedom from oppression and tyranny, and from a system that said that women were not good enough. A completely recreated trench system, as you see the sandbags here and the corrugated iron. And, you know, the Great War, it was a global conflict, of course it was, but I think our impressions of it in this country have often been shaped by the experiences of the Tommies in the trenches, the Western Front, that long defensive line that ran from the coast to the Alps. And for most of the war, both sides were basically in stalemate, and then there were these periods of intense and savage fighting, and that time produced stories of extraordinary courage, sometimes from unexpected quarters.
Your body is going to get cold very quickly. So
Chipstead Lake near Sevenoaks on a chilly morning. This briefing is for a dozen hardy souls about to take a dip.
Whilst you are in the water, move. Even if you don't swim, walk about. You need to keep your heart rate up.
The session is being supervised by TriSwim, an open water swimming community.
I think some people aren't going to be wearing an awful lot, and I find that difficult to understand.
I mean, their bodies will be a little bit more seasoned and hardened to it. There's nothing wrong with wearing a wetsuit the first couple of times that you do it. Your body has to become, and your immune system has to become acclimatised to that colder temperature. Just going in without nothing straight away, whilst is hardy and commendable, is not the smartest of things to be doing the first time you do it.
For me, in budgie smugglers, is not an option. Just to
Good.
let you know.
Lifeguards are on hand because while the ideal temperature for beginners is 11 degrees, the lake today is a bone-numbing 3 degrees. Even experienced swimmers here are told they mustn't spend more than a quarter of an hour out there.
If you're going to get involved in cold water swimming, you need to find a local group to go with, especially if it's your first time. It's not like swimming in the summer when the water is warmer and our bodies are used to it. This is significantly colder water, and there will be an impact on your body. Now, I don't want to say that it's dangerous, but it can be if you go out on your own and you're unprepared for it.
Lake and sea swimming season is normally May to October, although more people are making a splash all year round.
To be honest, just makes me feel amazing. You know, it's just a great feeling.
It's just so beautiful, and it's just such a extreme, extraordinary feeling. It's wonderful, really wonderful. Very, you feel very alive, incredibly alive.
Well, it's very invigorating, and it's a beautiful morning, and you feel like a mermaid.
Wading in even in wetsuits can bring a tear to the eye. Plan it so that you dry off and warm up quickly afterwards. Look forward to a hot drink as you weigh up the wisdom of your choices.
Why do people do it?
There's many different benefits and reasons for cold water swimming. So when you're immersed in cold water, your immune system learns to fight back, so it prevents colds, and that makes us feel happy, believe it or not.
Don't know about that.
It can help prevent anxiety and depression. It's also being outdoors, which is really good for the soul and the system. You've got the sun on you.
Do you have to be a bit mad to do it?
No, just a little. Don't have to be mad, but it helps.
Winter swimming is not for the faint-hearted, but if you're organised and ready, then take a breath and come on in. Derek Johnson, ITV News, near Sevenoaks. A dedication ceremony for one of the few towns with no permanent roll of honour for its war dead. Unveiled now, though, in Faversham's War Memorial Garden, 8 tablets with more than 500 names carved in stone. Among them, Captain Harry Taylor, who'd emigrated to Canada. He died of disease at the end of the Great War. His name has stayed in the family.
He came over with the Canadian Expeditionary Force there in 1914, and he spent all his time on the Western Front. But I'm glad now he's on the memorial there, and very proud of what he did there now. Yeah.
My relative was Percy Bosley.
Does the family know anything about Percy or how he died?
We don't quite, but we do have his war penny sat at home. I think it's very moving. Certainly the town have done an amazing thing with the bunting project that runs alongside this as well. All of the names are now displayed in the town centre, pieces of bunting made by the community. So it feels particularly special because not only have we got these stones here, you've also got the pieces of fabric hanging in the town hall too.
The Faversham Cross was one of the thousands of memorials that became focal points for grieving communities after 1918. But there were no names.
Why this happened, nobody knows, but there is a mystery about this, and we wanted to resolve it because the men of the First World War and the Second World War deserve their names publicly remembered. More than 700,000 British soldiers, sailors and airmen were killed in 4 years of war. Their bodies either lost or buried together far away.
When you look at the actual statistics, it's only 12% of the British Army that are killed in the First World War, 88% come back. However, those 12% who do die, most of them lie where they fall. There are no graves for people to go and mourn at, there are no cemeteries that are easily accessible for people to go and mourn at. So First World War memorials in towns and villages replace the graves of those who are missing, so they become part of the mourning process as much as they become part of the memorialisation process.
That process has been a slow one in terms of honouring the 1.3 million Indian servicemen who fought with the British. This commemoration in Brighton, one of many events now seeking to bring those ties closer.
There's, of course, that history of foreign rule that proud new nations kind of wanted to forget a little bit. So I think on both sides it's been allowed to dwindle in the memory. The fact that it's being talked about now, I think it'd be difficult now to find people who aren't aware that, on some level of that history, that shared history that we all have in Britain.
100 years on then, through all weathers and through all seasons, the fallen of the Great War are still with us.
Derek Johnson at the Old Bailey for us. So Derek, what was the motive for all of this?
Well, who knows? It comes down to Bishop's sick character and warped mind. It seems very odd looking back that he would try and focus so much attention on himself, taking part in the search, later coming back to live in the very community where families were grieving following the murder of these girls. As I say, just making him the story. Well, I spoke to a leading criminologist to look into this interview, to look into the mind of a murderer. This is less than 2 weeks after Bishop's let out of prison. He'd been on remand before his first trial, and here he is being filmed by ITV in Moulscombe, in the very community where the families live. It seems extraordinary to me that he would come back and do that.
It's incredibly brazen, isn't it? He is performing this role of the victim.
He's all smiles then when he sits down with his mother. Let's just listen to some of what he has to say.
I've had a couple of people come up to me since I've been out and said, look, I thought you was guilty. And I accept my apologies. And I have, and I've started talking to them again and it's been fine.
If there is anyone who still has a sneaking suspicion that you might have been guilty, what would you have to say to them?
Well, everyone's entitled to their own opinions.
Here's somebody who is a complete narcissist, and they really don't have any empathy whatsoever for the feelings of other people. It's all about them. It's all about me, and this has got that written all over it.
I ain't going to hide my face. I haven't done nothing wrong to hide my face for.
He's not going to hide his face. Wouldn't a killer want to hide his face, though, or keep a low profile after what he'd done?
You'd think so, yes. And I think his behaviour in this interview is really, really interesting because he's keeping incredibly still. It's almost as if he's worried that any kind of movement is going to betray his secret.
What's the atmosphere like on the estate now that people know that you didn't kill the girls and somebody else must have done?
Well, they want the case reopened straight away, I know that much. I feel very bitter towards the police that they've closed the case.
This is the first and the only time in the interview when they talk about the girls. And I think that makes it all a little bit too real for him. He's very, very uncomfortable with that. So when somebody puts their hand up like that, they're creating a physical barrier. He's literally trying to stop any information leaking out. And that's very, very revealing for me.
Fast forward now 2 years, and he joins a protest march with Karen's mother and others. He's seen in the background of the interview with her, and then he's seen handing out leaflets, and he speaks again.
And I want to see justice done for Karen and Nikki.
He's almost a different man there.
He is, and I think over that period of 2 years, he's come to quite enjoy the limelight. He's come to enjoy the attention, and he's inserting himself right in the middle of this spectacle that he knows that he's created.
And therefore they should open this case again. And I won't stop fighting until it's open again.
He killed 2 girls, such an awful crime. He looks, though, just quite pathetic, a bit shifty and very ordinary.
This is the thing when you look at people who are convicted of the most heinous crimes. Very often they don't look like the monsters that we expect them to be. They hide in plain sight, and this is one of the things that allows them to get away with what they've done. They don't actually look like the scary individuals we'd expect them to be.